What's up, friends? Welcome to Web3 Academy, a place for entrepreneurs, creators, and marketers to explore and learn how to use Web3 to transform business models and create thriving communities. Enjoy this next episode.
GM, welcome to Web3 Academy. It is the weekly Doer Spotlight. I'm Jay Bird, coming at you from Portugal this week, where I am with my fellow co-host, Kyle Reedhead. What's up, Kai?
Hey guys, we should have done this in the same, side by side in the same view, but I think that might be a little bit difficult, but maybe next time we'll do it.
I don't know if I like you that much, man. I don't know if I want to get that close.
My view's too nice anyway.
Yeah, you do have a way better view. What the heck? So today, really excited about this podcast. We are joined by David Schwartz and Sylvia Aran from Polygon, specifically Polygon Hermez and Polygon ID. We'll get into Polygon and that whole ecosystem because there's a lot going on over there, and we're really excited to break that down. Let me just give a brief intro and then, we'll jump into it. So David is the co-founder of Polygon Hermez and Polygon ID. He's spent over 20 years of experience in the IT industry, having held different engineering and executive positions in telecom operators, consulting firms, and technology providers. And since 2018, he has been leading projects at IDEN3, Polygon ZK EVM, and Polygon ID. David, welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Sylvia is the head of business development at Polygon ID, and she has more than 15 years of experience in corporate banking, but in 2018 decided to make the shift while I believe she was in Paris at ETHCC, which also just happened recently this year. And then in 2021, she joined IDEN3, a startup based in Barcelona, and specialized in ZK technology applied to scalability solutions for blockchain and privacy for digital identities. Welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you very much, Jay and Kyle, for having us today here.
You're welcome. We're very excited to have you both. This is going to be a good one. We've got lots to unpack and lots to dive into. We always like to start by hearing a bit about your rabbit hole story. What first got you into Web3, crypto, blockchain? What was it? What was the why? Why did you want to spend your time dedicated towards this space? David, would love to start with you, and then Sylvia will go to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my story is probably very common. I was working in IT in different, let's say, industries for a long time. Then some friend of mine, my fellow co-founder Jordi Bailina, he just convinced me to check on Ethereum and everything that was happening there. So after that, I just decided that I wanted to work on this. There's nothing so attractive and so, let's say, inspirational as this. We wanted to have an impact. We started the IDEN3 project. That's the seed of this Polygon ID project we are discussing today. The objective was to have this alternative to users for having a digital identity which was private by default, and we were just super excited about this. So, well, this changed my whole career, and super happy of having done this.
And in my case, well, as you said, I went to this Ethereum conference in Paris in 2018. I didn't go just by chance. So I being in the banking industry, we started hearing about Bitcoin, understanding the blockchain technology and so on. And then I started to get interested in it. So my background is also engineering, although I was working mainly in this banking industry. And one of my colleagues at DB, actually one of the other co-founders at IDEN3, Anthony, also started to talk to me about this technology and asked me to join this conference. And once I went there and I saw the motivation, the energy, the willingness to do changes, relevant changes in this society, using this technology, making use of privacy, I thought, well, I missed the revolution of internet at that point in time, but I don't want to miss this revolution. That was 2018. But of course, it's not that easy to just drop off that security that such a position gives you. So that took a bit of time until 2021, when already David, together with Anthony and Jordi, already created Identity and had almost a product ready to deliver. That was the Hermez product. Most probably David will elaborate a bit more about it afterwards. And I decided, well, it's the right point in time to jump there. I think just make a trial, and I don't regret at all. I'm really enjoying. It's a very dynamic world. People really believing on what they do, and well, I can't more than recommend others to do such a change if they are thinking about it.
I love it. It's nice to see bankers moving into Web3 space. I think that's my favorite thing. So let's set a bit of context to all the listeners today. So we're going to talk about a lot. Okay. If there's probably two subjects we've been talking about the most in the last few weeks, it's identity. We actually had Disco on recently, disco.xyz. And we've talked about identity a lot. And then we also talk about Polygon a lot especially in our news rollup, because there's just so much news coming out of Polygon. So big ecosystem, big new kind of use case in terms of identity. And I think a big unlock that Web3 is kind of bringing to the table. So we're going to dive into all that. But before we do, why don't you, maybe David, we'll start with you, but can you just give us an overview of what the heck is all going on at Polygon? Like, this ecosystem is huge. There's Polygon proof of stake, there's Polygon Hermez, there's just so many different things that you guys are doing. And so maybe you can just give us a breakdown of the goal, like just the overarching goal of Polygon and what you guys are trying to build out there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's true. There's too much going on in Polygon. I mean, I'll try to just provide a quick overview, not to bore anyone, but I would say, if I want to summarize what's Polygon about, it's Polygon's vision is about scaling Ethereum. So Polygon defined, the founders of Polygon just created this initial Matic project that was a solution to scale Ethereum. And this vision didn't change so far. The idea is to provide a suite of blockchains and scalability solutions, data availability, identity, all these kind of technologies and networks and let's say platforms are intended to provide this, to enlarge and enrich the ecosystem around Ethereum. So the idea is still to bring all this group of developers to Ethereum, to just create this kind of fantastic applications. So it's Polygon vision is to provide service to developers. We want to be a Web3 platform that provides all this tooling to just developers to approach these platforms and be able to access quick to resources and ecosystem of development. But the idea is the same, scale Ethereum. So the POS was the first product, the first solution to scale Ethereum. It was very successful. And Polygon last year decided to do more and to bring more, let's say, options and let's say products to the family. So they did a very big investment in zero knowledge technologies, and the Polygon Hermez is one of them. We were joining the Polygon team last year in August with the merger of the Hermez network and Polygon. And from that, there also was the announcements of the merger or the acquisition of Mir protocol, now Polygon Zero, and also Polygon Maiden. So beyond that, there's the project built in, let's say, in alliance with Ernst & Young, that's called Polygon Nightfall. And also Polygon is developing a data availability layer in Polygon Avail. Beyond that, there's more initiatives of product development to just try some things, mature some products, create more solutions. Big one is Polygon Edge, that's able to provide this private blockchain environment. And now we have Supernets, which derive from this edge. So there's kind of, as I said, this environment of blockchains that wants to provide solutions for different groups of developers, like from the enterprise to the Web3 community. And at the same time, Polygon is now bringing innovation. They want to We want to build this kind of technology that's absolutely state of the art and in a mode of contribution to the development of the Ethereum ecosystem in a permissionless way. We want to create this permissionless innovation by open sourcing all this technology and create this ecosystem of collaboration that we believe is the right one for the Ethereum community in general, but for the blockchain and Web3 space in let's say in the broad sense.
So basically what Polygon is doing is building out a group of different or a suite of different scaling products that all kind of link into Ethereum, and they help the overall, I guess, bandwidth or scalability of Ethereum, and ultimately to kind of reach the end goal, which is to build these kind of really cool use cases like Polygon ID. We need to scale, right? Why though why does Polygon choose to scale Ethereum specifically? I mean, you have your own proof of stake blockchain. Why not just do it from there? Like, what is the reason that their whole mission is geared around scaling Ethereum specifically?
Well, Ethereum is let's say, the best expression of the decentralized world. I mean, we believe that Ethereum represents the values of, let's say, neutral community, permissionless innovation that the founders of Polygon wanted to embrace, and this didn't change. So maybe others want to do different things, but that's the vision and the mission of Polygon. So I don't know if, I mean, Polygon could do different things, but this is absolutely in the core of the it's structural to the company or the team or the project, if you want.
Absolutely. And so Polygon Hermez has recently, and congrats on this, by the way, I think it was July 19th, launched the first ZK EVM. I guess maybe you could just break down what that means. I don't know that a lot of people understand how big of a deal that is. I think it's really big, and I was really excited. But maybe you can just first of all explain what ZK is, or what ZK EVMs are, and then we can just talk about like what that means for the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ZK means zero knowledge, and this stands for a set of cryptographic tools that are used to prove the validity of a computation without the need of repeating this computation. This is one use case. The other use case would be to just provide privacy for some data, which is pretty much the same that getting some computation and not the need to have this computation executed in some way. So this is zero knowledge. It's a cryptographic innovation that happened recently. I think it's from the 1980s, something like this, the first implementations. And now recently with the blockchain and the innovation around the crypto has been boosting a lot. So the application for scalability means that you are able to create a parallel blockchain, let's say what's called off-chain, meaning if Ethereum is the chain or on-chain, you are doing something else out of the Ethereum. And this computation of transactions out of Ethereum can be, let's say, proven that they have been executed with the same rules of Ethereum. Why? Because you are kind of creating a zero knowledge proof that this computation has been done correctly in the way that the rules of this computation needs to be executed. So this is a way to scale because it's very interesting, has very interesting properties. If you are able to prove that a computation is valid off-chain, you are kind of executing transactions out of Ethereum, first thing. The Ethereum and the blockchains in general have the need to replicate computation between all the nodes in the blockchain network. But this model, you can just have, let's say, another way of validating transactions, which is with zero knowledge, you can validate computation in a single node, and this node can create a proof. So this is saving a lot of computation in terms of blockchain. And if you, I mean, the blockchains in general, the safe blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they have a very low throughput This is why all this computation and all this data needs to be replicated along the network. So this was about scaling. So we need to find different approaches for this, let's say, throughput to be executed somewhere in a safe way. So this is a very important breakthrough because zero knowledge is kind of enabling all this scalability with this off-chain computation. And at the same time, ZK EVM means that we are building an off-chain network that has the same behavior of Ethereum, but not by, initially it was about doing some kind of token transfer or transactions of this nature. Now it's about executing smart contracts. So we are replicating the whole Ethereum virtual machine in an off-chain network that's able to create these zero-knowledge proofs to validate this computation. And then these zero-knowledge proofs are settled down and recorded into Ethereum mainnet, along with all this transaction data. So any participant of this layer 2 network, this is why it's called layer 2, because it's off-chain, but it's connected at the same time. You could be able to read all this data and all these proofs, and you will be able to reconstruct the state of this layer 2 network. So this is a strategy of the ZK rollups. But ZK EVM means that we have built a ZK rollup that's able to execute the whole EVM. So this is where the scalability it's more interesting now. These things are getting more exciting now.
So by ZK EVM, you basically mean that if let's say Uniswap or something that's on Ethereum mainnet wants to go onto this ZK EVM, it's the exact same thing, and it's basically like, I don't know if it's one click, let's say, but it's very easy to just port it over onto this rollup or this layer 2 versus one that is not EVM compatible. Is that correct?
Yes, this network is connected to Ethereum. You should be able to use a bridge to just transport these assets to this layer 2 network. But once your assets are there, you will be able to run the same applications that can be executed in Ethereum layer 1. Okay. So this is an important breakthrough because this was considered to be a very complex model, because the validation in zero-knowledge circuits about this kind of arbitrary computation was something difficult to imagine 1 year ago. In fact, there was different approaches in layer 2 scalability. We announced it last year in Paris, this ZK EVM project, which was considered to be non-practical or difficult. But we managed to build this thanks to the merger with Polygon, where we were able to have more resources, more team, and also with the collaboration of other teams in Polygon, such as Polygon Might and Polygon Zero. There was a lot of breakthroughs. It has been a very challenging project, but the announcement we did last week, or the 20th of July, was that all the challenges were solved, and we open sourced the code. So next step for us will be releasing a public testnet for developers to approach this technology and test and see if it's really working, if it's something it's practical for them and they want to use that.
Right. Two questions that came out of this. One, we've talked a lot about optimistic rollups. So Optimism and Arbitrum, which launched last year, I think it was around August and September. And that's kind of how we've explained layer 2s to most of our audience. And I think most of our audience would be familiar with those now. I'm wondering if, one, you can kind of just break down the difference of a ZK rollup versus an optimistic rollup, as simple as you can without going too much into details. The other question I have that I did not know is, you said that you, not specifically you, but there has been the research on zero knowledge proofs since the 80s, but we didn't even have blockchain back then. So I guess zero knowledge proofs is a technology that is not specific to blockchain. Could you just sort of touch on that and explain? Let me wrap my head around that.
No, it's not specific to blockchains. This is something that's a kind of cryptographic protocol. So it's something you can use for many use cases. Probably there's a lot of research now around blockchain, but this technology will be also applied to non-blockchain use cases. In fact, my fellow co-founder Jordi was creating, as part of the Aran 3 protocol in 2018, we were creating the CIRCOM programming language for zero knowledge, which is one of the most used tools to build zero knowledge circuits. And there's a lot of applications now that are not blockchain that are using these kind of protocols. So this is something that's probably the blockchain was kind of a trigger to accelerate, because all this scalability, and we started with the privacy as part of Identity. We'll discuss later with Polygon ID, but the computation verification is probably most needed use case. So it was a lot of innovation around that.
Interesting.
And the difference between optimistic and ZK, I mean, the optimistic projects are amazing, and they have been doing a great effort and into scaling and layer 2 scaling. The difference between these kind of technologies of optimistic rollups and ZK rollups basically is that the optimistic rollups are running the same off-chain computation. They receive transactions from the users. They are able to produce some batches, and they are able to create some state of this network. The model of validating this state is what is different, because the optimistic rollups they have some model where the nodes are doing a naive computation of this state. This is what is called optimistic, because you assume that everything is going fine, and there's a model of observers that if some computation is done in the wrong way, they can just create a failure proof, and there's let's say a model to a dispute resolution model implemented in smart contracts. So in short, you are able to, the state is moving forward as the network computes, and if something is wrong, there's a period of time where someone can just challenge this state, and if this person is right, they get some incentives and so on. So there's some game theory around this. In ZK rollups, the model is similar, because we have layer 2, we have user transactions, and then the nodes compute transactions. But instead of having this game around incentives to validate these transactions, the validation is on the fly, and it's done as you settle down a new state. You need to put this together with a validity proof. Validity proof means the computation has been validated according to these rules, and here is the knowledge proof that validates this state. So there's a state that's moving forward, but it can be considered final. Of course, you have to generate the cryptographic proof. This has some cost, this has some delay, but let's say the main difference is that the finality of the networks is different. The optimistic rollups, they have a finality of some days, and in the ZK rollups, it might have some minutes or some hours at most. So it's considered, and this I am absolutely biased towards ZK rollups because it makes sense, but it's considered that the evolution of these protocols and the zero-knowledge proofs and the Polygon ZK EVM, for example, we plan to do very frequent zero-knowledge proofs. So this means that the finality will be a question of minutes, and this is a good benefit for users, and the user experience in general of the network will be better. So I don't know if it's clear, but I think the main difference is that one is naive computation with some game theory, the other is a strict computation with zero-knowledge proof, and this creates different experience for users. But of course, the time advantage of optimistic rollups was clear, because the ZK rollups were not mature enough at this stage 1 year ago. And now, as the ZK EVM is developing, probably both solutions are closer.
In terms of scalability, I'm wondering if you could just try to give us some context here. I think Ethereum's throughput is what, 16 transactions per second, if that's correct. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around there.
I think it's 25.
Is it 25? Okay, 25 transactions per second. What kind of numbers are we talking about with a ZK scalability? Do we know that yet?
Well, no, we don't know yet, to be honest, but we could do some assumptions and predictions, because I'm talking about our project. We are scaling. Let's say we're creating the first prototype. It's going to be slow. It's going to be buggy. For the previous version, we had the Hermez network. We will be able to produce 2,000 transactions per second in terms of payment transfers. With the ZK EVM, we are doing kind of arbitrary transactions, so it's not going to be so efficient for the same model. But at the same time, we are bringing innovations such as zero-knowledge recursion. So we will be able to create a first proof and then a proof of a proof to aggregate and let's say scale in a let's say recurrent way, we expect that we could get numbers of thousands of transactions per second. So this will be the objective. We are doing all of this to scale. So there's some limits. Probably the next limit will be data availability in terms of how many data we can store and so on. But the initial bottleneck, which was considered the zero knowledge proof calculation, now it's pretty much solved. We think it's this bottleneck is gone. Let's go for the next one and so on. This is a long journey, but we expect that with one network we can handle thousands of transactions per second.
Amazing. I'm sure we all are excited for that to happen because we need scalability, obviously. Now,
Yeah.
So zero knowledge proofs are a scalability tool or technology. They're also unlocking a lot of use cases in terms of privacy, right? A blockchain is kind of public and transparent, open for anyone to see, which is a great thing, but it's also not necessarily an amazing thing when it comes to like personal data. And I think zero knowledge proofs is sort of a solution to that, which I believe is what enables what you are both building at Polygon ID. Maybe you can talk about that privacy side of things and sort of how that unlocks a bunch of new use cases in the world of blockchain. And Sylvia, if you want to jump in on that one, feel free to. Otherwise, David, you can take that as well.
Yeah. So privacy was the initial project we were working on because we envisioned this was a big issue for digital identities. We are facing a lot of pressure on users because, in fact, users don't have digital identity. So you have some set of accounts in service providers, so they are owning your account, they're owning your data. So we understood that this was a kind of a very urgent need for users. The Web3 space ethos requires more. We have a clear mindset of privacy in terms of using blockchains in general, but there's some, let's say, regulation trends also that's let's say putting some different model and that will apply in some way. But the privacy with zero knowledge is the second use case. I mean, you want to protect a set of data. You want to prove something about your data, but you don't want to show your data. That's what we were building from the beginning in Item 3, applied to identity. We want to create, let's say, digital identities, a distributed private key model where we're using keys compatible with blockchains. So we can anchor states in blockchains so for some specific, let's say, use cases we can discuss later. But it was about creating some data structure based on blockchain so we can interact with Web3 applications. But at the same time, we apply this zero knowledge technology for users to hold information and being able to decide if they want to share this information or not. So it's about holding privacy. And if we go one step forward, probably the next step that will be kind of understood will be this concept of reputation that's kind of owned by the user and that is reusable. So you get some kind of interactions with applications, you get some credentials, you get some data that you get by using some kind of Web2 applications, and at some point you want to prove that you are eligible for something, that you have some experience, that you have some reputation. So this is another use case, and the next one will be something we aim to implement also is this kind of decentralized identity verification. So you can prove you are human and you can prove you are unique and you don't need to hold and have a national ID document or something like this, because there's so many people that don't have this kind of documents. The challenge here is to provide access to the Web3 environment to all these people that's not able to access to the economy today. And this was kind of one of the initial objectives we had from the beginning. So zero knowledge proof and privacy is kind of an enabler of all this new model of human relationship and community and people coordination. So this was what why I fall in love personally with the Web3 space and why we need to finish all of this. There's a roadmap to implement all this. There's other teams also that they are building on specific niches and parts of this process. And we are super happy to produce what's not developed yet and connect and interact with other teams.
If I may add something, because in some cases when I talk about the digital identity solution we have and the privacy we have, to colleagues or former colleagues that are not that familiar with this world, they try to understand, and the most easy example that we can tell them is we provide privacy here because you are proving things about yourself without sharing any type of personal information. So you can simply, with zero knowledge proof technology, really prove that you are older than 18. That's the most typical example we say, without even saying whether you are 20, 40, or your date of birth. And that's what these technologies allow, which I think is very, very powerful. And as David said, can be applied to really many different use cases, as many cases as you can imagine, like private voting, reputation, and the benefit of the solution is, as also David said, is that creation of a self-sovereign identity where you as a user are owning your own identity and not having your data owned by a third party that has your digital account or digital identity, and your digital identity is not any longer scattered. So you own it, you have it in your wallet, you start controlling the data that others have issued on your identity. And with that, you can start proving things about yourself. And of course, then that data is portable, right? So data that was issued in one space, you hold it and you can use in a different space. That's I think the beauty of this solution. In addition, I would say we bring some additional features thanks to the zero knowledge proof, so that for the Web3 become very handy. It's not only the privacy per se in the way you prove things, but later on when the entity or the application receiving that proof can check that online, also without having access to the real information, the actual data, by certain methods that allow the recipient of that proof to validate it. Yeah.
Very interesting. And I love the examples, because I think once you hear some of the examples, it really sort of just allows people to understand what exactly you guys are trying to accomplish and what this does. And I think that the improving that you're 18 but not saying how old you are is the perfect one to sort of to sort of grasp that concept. I'm just trying to figure out how else we could explain it to listeners so they can really sort of understand this. Like, where do we encounter this in the real world right now, where it's a big problem? I don't know if you have any examples that you can share where it's something that someone would do every day, where you're like, oh, if you just had Polygon ID and zero knowledge proofs, it would make your life easier or make your life better in some way. Do you have any of those examples just that you could pull out of a hat and be like, yeah, this one right here, this one, everyone will understand?
I would say we could find almost a limited number of examples, but I would go with simple, easy ones when you start transacting with a new financial institution, being centralized or decentralized, where you need to go through that KYC process that everyone hates, right? Sure. So in theory, you are KYC'd once, and if the party that is KYCing you is a trusted party by the recipient of the proof, then you can start reusing that without having to, whenever you operate with different exchanges, having to go once and again through that KYC process. That's one example. Another example is just figure out that you have all your records regarding your health or even certificates of vaccination. Somehow we already have that, right? So the wallet you have where you show that QR code with that vaccination certificate is somehow part of a digital identity. In our solution, most probably would work slightly different, but that could be one case. And as David said, at a certain point in time, we believe that all these documents that we have nowadays, ID cards, passports, maybe even birth certificates, and all this paper that you really need to be sure that you very well organize and save at home. Finally, it will be in one place where you can simply use it by holding your telephone and then making use of that information and sharing not the information per se, but proving things out of that information. The only handicap here, of course, is you need to be very careful of how do you manage your digital identity and that you don't lose the keys of that digital identity, right?
Mm.
Yeah, probably I could add some other examples. You could think about this model where we will be able to verify that someone is a person with some decentralized model. So if I am a human and I am unique because my identities, I only have one identity, you can imagine that the potential of using this across applications. In the Web3, there's a common problem of bots, and you are probably interacting with the blockchain. You only need to have an Ethereum address or an account. So what's the application where you would like to interact with persons by just, I don't know, example of an airdrop or something, and you don't want to have bots, and you don't have to have one person with multiple accounts. So there's a lot. This is a common problem in the Web3 in general.
Twitter.
So
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, for example. So the other example could be this kind of, imagine a credit score. If I am able to have a decentralized verification, then I pay my debts in some broad concept, then I will be having some portable reputation across many services. So if we get some kind of standards of reputation and agreement and what's the kind of desired score, many applications could benefit from that. You don't need to store, Sylvia was saying, to do a new KYC, to get your own database of users, because there's a lot of compliance around that. You don't want to have personal information in general as an application. Maybe some banks want to do that, but some small apps or applications, they want to just have users that you know they are human, that they are unique, and you want to interact with them. That's it. Maybe you are over 18 or something like that. There are some basic, let's say, attributes that you want to check and reuse across many applications. So if we are able to provide this reusability, and we are able to provide good usability for the keys, Sylvia was saying, that's another topic we are working super hard. We are probably lowering the bar for users to interact with Web3. And this is kind of the objective we have.
And connecting to what you have said, David, so the first use case we have now in place live for Polygon ID is for Polygon DAO, actually, where we are supporting what I consider to be a revolutionary method of governance for DAOs, right? So nowadays, most of the DAOs are governed based on token ownership, but we wanted to move to a more governance based on meritocracy, on how good are you at knowledge related to that DAO, to that project. And then what we are doing at this point in time is ensuring, as David said, that there will be a unique human voting, so one human, one vote. So resolving that civil resistance challenge, because actually it's a challenge, and then allowing to vote that individual into a specific proposal published by the DAO. And at a certain point in time, we will be able to connect some reputation to that individual, to that digital identity, that will allow that vote can count more or less, depending on your reputation connected to that specific project and proposal, right? So I think this is quite powerful, and well, this opening new ways of governing DAOs, and that can be also applied to not only DAOs but even real life, right?
Is that reputation that you're talking about? It's really interesting. I love that, how it's like, let's try to find the right people to be able to have the ability to vote. Is that being done via like soulbound NFTs, like through credentials, or you mean just by like interactions and activity that they're doing just in any dApp and on any, basically across the blockchain? Is that how that works?
Would you like to, or shall I, David?
This reputation is something that we need to just construct and collect from many sources. This is why we define this protocol as very open and very, let's say, multi-network, Web2, Web3, and also from different sources of credentials. So tokens could be an option, both fungible and non-fungible. let's say, interaction with the Web3 in general, but also off-chain credentials, because we understand that most of the activity today happens off-chain. So we need to provide compatibility with legacy credentials. We need to be able to issue credentials in a format that's optimal for zero knowledge, because also, if you remember, we are, let's say, unique in privacy, as let's say this is our strength, main strength. And also we need to be interacting with Web3. So reputation can be something complex because the application that's requesting for some reputation decides what's the valid reputation. So we created also a technology called claim request language, where the application that's recipient of this information can define which are the requirements. So my requirements are this, and that. So the user in their application needs to know which are the sets of information they need to have and compose a proof to have this access to this service. So at this moment, we have, let's say, built this protocol layer, and we are building the platform. The platform is going to be something that's going to be evolving over time, but of course, with developers in mind, having some libraries and so. Because this concept of reputation is something that evolves from the current situation, that's a basic credential, that's a common case today, until something that's very complex and requires a lot of analysis. We would love to be able users to collect interactions from existing Web2 applications, so they are able to collect all this information, such as connections in Twitter or followers or tweets or something that can be proving that you are someone who has a social activity, or maybe with open banking, getting information about your bank's whatever, and then you go to Web3 and get some token balance or NFTs or something. So this is going to evolve over time, and we will see which is the best solution. But the platform is designed to support all of it. So this is why we are very excited about Polygon ID.
You mentioned standards, and that seems like such an important topic here. Obviously, when we build any new technology, we're kind of figuring out standards as we go. Who is working? Is there any consortiums working on standards of reputation, standards of humanity? Who is doing that, and what's coming out of that so far? Is there sort of a status of where that's at that you can share?
Yes, so at this point in time, to my knowledge, the most known standard being discussed is the Web3 consortium, and that is developing and deciding how to work with verifiable credentials. However, we have decided not to be restricted and limited by certain standards, because we wanted to provide a solution that maybe goes beyond those boundaries. And actually, although this is not very humble, but maybe if we achieve the right adoption and critical mass at a certain point in time, we can even become a standard, right? So since we are making this open source, making it available to the development community, so we believe we can even become a different standard. Of course, we think that we would like to be compatible, right? So to provide the best benefits to the end user, at a certain point in time, we might need to think on creating bridges between both the standards in order and the same user that has received some credentials based on verifiable credentials can reuse or those in our protocol under the form of what we call claims, right? So that's the idea. Not sure, David, if you want to elaborate something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, this, what you said is absolutely, let's say, complete. The only thing I would say is that since we want to be open to any scenario, we want to benefit from these standards and also being practical to propose things such as practical reputation for Web3, where there's nothing. So probably we want to provide a solution as soon as possible. So standards have a different cycle and a different approach. They are a lot based on this kind of sense of interoperability. So the industry has been working on standards for a long time, and to be honest, the adoption has not been crazy at this stage. We start to see some movement around these technologies recently, but we want to embrace standards and also create proposals that are going beyond the standards, because we don't want to be limited to something specific. We want to be, let's say, connecting all these worlds, like verifiable credential standards for the off-chain world, the token standards, NFTs and non-transferable tokens in the Web3, and other standards that might happen in the future. But we need to be absolutely covering all this spectrum, because we want to provide a solution for all of it. The users needs a turnkey solution. I have an identity, I need to use this for everything. So from having a vaccination credential to have a, let's say, Web3 eligibility for an airdrop. So need to be the same. So this is how we approach this.
And so let's talk about the roadmap a bit for Polygon ID. What's coming in the future?
So as David already elaborated before, so the first thing we want to ensure is that we allow participants to become users of this protocol, right? And at the moment, of course, we have our code is open source, but really building use cases on top of it is not that easy, right? You need to understand very well the ZK technology, how to issue credentials, and so on. So what we would like to do first is to create a platform, what we call a Polygon ID platform, to allow issuers and verifiers to be able to connect easily with this platform via APIs, and for instance, to facilitate to issuers the generation and management of those claims, what we call claims, which are the statements that they do on a specific identity. And on the other hand, allowing the verifiers, so the recipient of that proof, as also David said, to define with that query language easily, so the type of proofs they would like to receive from the user, like are you older than 18, are you not contained in that list of sanctioned countries, and so on. So allowing these verifiers to define exactly what they want the user to prove, and also defining what are the sources of trust they rely on, right? So from which issuer they would like that user to have a claim for the generation of the proof. And that's the first step. Of course, we are also having a wallet in place, a Polygon ID app, also open source, but we will allow also other wallet providers to integrate with us using our SDKs and libraries. So we need to continue working hard on having documentation available for them to easily make that happen. That will be the first step. And then from there, it will be creating reputation and then making use of a party that we call a relayer. I don't know if that's the right term, David. I think we call it relayer. That will enable the issuance of credentials in a peer-to-peer manner, and also so to say, handing over the complexity of having to issue the credentials on your own node, and so on, to a third party that will provide these services to issuers that don't want to have these headaches, and then of course be rewarded for that. And this of course can later on be scaled to a level that will allow to issue credentials at a country level in an easy and relatively cost-effective manner. And I think here most probably David has much more to add to it.
Yes, probably I will get to the point where Sylvia was probably explaining in a different way. So today we have the option for a user to create kind of a data structure, that's identity. Imagine that the identity is your wallet. Then in your wallet, you receive some credentials. Imagine that they are credit cards, IDs, points from your provider. You receive some stuff in your wallet. You have something to show when you get around. So the application can ask you, okay, prove that you are member of the club. And then you get to the wallet, you get the credential of the club and say, look, I am member of the club. We can do that with zero-knowledge proof. This is what we call a passive identity, because passive identity is an identity that receives credentials. You receive this kind of cards, information that you collect, you own, and then you can prove something about you. You can prove that you have access to something because you are a member, whatever. This is where the phase we are today. The second phase will be that any identity will be able to issue cards to other entities. So you could have a card from me, not only from the club, from the country club. You can have a card from me saying that you are a very nice guy or you are my friend or something. So this is where identities are active. They don't not only collect credentials, but also they can issue credentials on other identities. So this is where we are enabling the ecosystem of the Web3 applications, decentralized applications, because with this model of active identities, you could build, for example, a decentralized Twitter. You know what I mean? If I am able to issue a credential on Sylvia, this credential could be a tweet and say, look, Sylvia, or a direct message. But I could also be able to issue a credential that's open. And there's a server that reads these kind of credentials and they publish. And it is centralized because this credential is from my identity. I signed this piece of information and it's certified. I am a certification authority and whatever I issue is certified. So you could have in your wallet credentials issued by me, and application developers could just use rely on this to build decentralized applications that have the need of certified messages. Because I could build an email system on this, because I can send a piece of information with my signature, so it's like an email. So this is where we are very excited, because we are enabling probably Web3 ecosystem of decentralized applications. You don't need any more central server with this model of peer-to-peer communication. So Sylvia was referring to the relayer. The relayer is kind of a technical name for something that enables these active identities to work. Because if you are doing this off-chain, it's fine, it's for free. But if you're doing something on-chain, somebody needs to pay the gas fees on the blockchain for that, right? And we want these transactions to be free or almost free or susceptible to possibly to be sponsored. So if you put a model of a sponsor that pays the gas, it's kind of a same model of a rollup. The rollup is kind of a off-chain system to scale transactions. So the relayer for us is kind of a rollup. So if in fact, this is a side story, we developed Hermez because we were thinking on this rollup for identity transactions. So we were building identity transactions. I thought, okay, but Ethereum gas is super expensive. 2018, remember? DeFi is booming, so it was impossible. Our identity project was done, dead. And we decided, okay, let's build a rollup first. And when we scale Ethereum, then we will come back and scale identity transactions. So this is another differentiator and very key topic of Polygon ID. This is in the roadmap. Probably we will talk about this by the end of the year, beginning of next one. And the next story is to build this scalability solution or this to do these identity transactions with a big scale. So a nation can use that for a voting, because you need to do millions of transactions in 1 hour. So let's find out how we can do that. Because if we are, let's say, having this scalability model, we need to do this. It's very connected with the ZK EVM. In fact, you see that there's a parallelism here. At the same time, we want to develop this model of peer-to-peer identity verification and to enable identity providers. Polygon ID is designed to be a middleware for developers. And we also want to enable applications to be identity providers with their own brand. For example, I don't know, any country could have the nation ID or something. but it's compatible. It needs to be part of this ecosystem, so users can reuse this across any Polygon ID compatible application. So that's in short what's coming in the next year, let's say.
A lot, it sounds like, is coming. Would you say that when I think about and I listen to you talk about all the different things that you're doing here with Polygon ID, some of it sounds similar to Apple ID. I can store my health records in Apple ID for certain apps. I have my credit cards and my airplane tickets and a bunch of these different things in my Apple ID. It allows me to go and interact with different applications. I can sign up and buy things in apps with it. And I do it all with just basically my Apple ID. Is that sort of what, would that be your biggest competition, I guess? And is that basically what you're trying to recreate, but in a decentralized way? And then I think one of the big unlocks here in the Web3 world is that there's just so much more information because everything is open and transparent. And so you can take interactions with one, like peer-to-peer, with applications, with so many different things. There's just so much more data. Is that a good kind of take of what you're trying to do here with Polygon ID, or what's the comparison like with Apple ID?
Well, of course, all of this was, let's say, ideated, and all of this made sense because we wanted to get out of this centralized systems. So the usability of the Web2 is unbeatable. I mean, it's unbeatable. Web3 is not getting to this standard so far. Of course, we want to do the same as Apple ID is doing, but in a decentralized way, because we want the users to be, we want to provide users with a new option, which is the decentralized option. Of course, many users would not be interested. They would say, okay, but Apple ID is more convenient because you know what, it's working and I don't care. But you don't care until you care, you know. So at some point, people will say, okay, but I have a problem. All my information is owned by Apple. So then you might be in a problem, and you might decide to do this. The Web3 space, of course, they understand that. But the challenge is to provide all this tool set and be available and ready. It will be, if we are very close to this usability level, then I guess everything will be fine, because we have a big difference. I mean, privacy. And this privacy, when it comes to personal data, is not a detail, you know, it's something, it's something important. Then, yeah, I totally agree with maybe what your point is, makes a lot of sense. I mean, Apple ID and all these, let's say, operating system providers with native devices, they are doing a lot of progress lately. I don't know why. If it's maturity, it happened by chance, but we started the project in 2018. I can tell you, we were thinking on something superior to Apple ID today. But it's good that the standards of usability are better. It's more challenging to get to this level, but we want to provide this because if the market of this application, say, use cases exist, users will understand better that you have a wallet, the concept of a wallet, the concept of a credential, the concept of having tickets, having all this information in a single point is good for us. It's good for us because before that, you had the identity spread in many accounts, so you don't know when you have things. So Apple is helping to get this concept of a single wallet. Of course, they have intention to get all this, let's say, information from users, but we have the intention to remove this from Apple, which is also fine.
Well, finally, our main proposition here is the privacy and the decentralization. No? So compared to the Apple solution, in here you are the owner of that information, of your wallet, and no one will be able to remove that and let's say close that account whatsoever, which I doubt will be the case maybe with Apple, right? So that was at the core of our values, what we wanted to provide here. Privacy, decentralization, and allowing, supporting, opening the gates to Web3, the Web3 world.
You keep mentioning the wallet. Is there a Polygon ID wallet currently, or where is that out? I feel like I'm missing the boat here that I haven't already downloaded and started using it.
Well,
yes. You can download it from the App Store, or it's also for Android. Nowadays, the main use case we have in that wallet is the one for the DAO. So you would be able to, for instance, get some credentials issued by an entity we created called Polygon Verified that will drive you through a kind of KYC process in order to ensure that you are a human being. So you would receive a claim related to your proof of personhood, your membership of the DAO, date of birth and country of residence. And with that, you would be able to go to a platform which is called the Grail, where Polygon DAO is publishing certain proposals, authenticating with your identity wallet, and then being able to vote on one proposal by proving that you are a member of the DAO. So that's the current use case. So there is one wallet, of course, but we, of course, need to continue growing on use cases and applications where you can start using it. And as we said before, we will enable other wallet providers to adapt our protocol. So if you prefer to use maybe MetaMask or any other wallet, then that shall be possible. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I mean, in our model for privacy, most of it happens in the user device. So wallet is kind of a first implementation, a reference implementation, so we can prove the concept and everybody can see that this is working. We probably will keep this application alive for developers to reuse if they want. But as Sylvia was saying, we will also be enabling developers, and we will have SDKs and the tools for this identity system to be integrated in any previous existing application. So we want this to be absolutely available for any developers, even enterprises is fine. So they can do what they want with this. I mean, it's gonna be something we need to see how it evolves, because we are kind of a middleware. We don't have ambition to become kind of a main provider of identity, but maybe the market on the developer, let's say, use cases guides us to this scenario.
I don't know if this is something you all talk about internally at all, but this makes me think about, you just talked about Apple ID and how, big this is and what they're doing, but they're taking all this data, which is obviously very important to them. Do you see this as or them as a barrier to entry here? Like they could be basically a walled garden to not let this ID come into play. Is there something you guys can do to get around that? I mean, like Solana, for example, is launching their own phone and their own operating systems. And I guess Polygon actually has done the same, partnering with, I think, was it Huawei? I can't remember who the partners, HTC, I think it was, to start building their own, Ethereum-based operating systems in the phones. Like, is the hardware or the operating systems going to be a problem here at all, or does that not really matter?
No. This, as I told us, we want to be a middleware, very portable. We want to solve a specific problem, and we need to be, let's say, very transversal and portable across many platforms. I mean, today is something we are running into iOS and Android devices. There's some smart contract set that's, let's say, Ethereum compatible smart contracts. We are starting in Polygon POS network, but we will be portable across different networks. It's not going to be even tied to Polygon POS. Right. So interesting. It needs to be universal in some way.
We've got just a few more questions, and I think we can start to wrap up. We could talk all day, I'm sure. I'm curious, Sylvia, running business development at Polygon ID, who is showing the most interest right now?
We have from every different corner you can imagine interest, right? So from really incipient startups working in the Web3 world, in DeFi, in gaming, in different DAOs applications, from also enterprises and also tech companies, very well-known tech companies, the biggest ones, right? Everyone willing to know what we do, at least to pay attention to how do we resolve certain topics around this digital identity and our approach to privacy, decentralization. So I wouldn't say one more than others, right? So it's really on different sizes, different industry sectors. The interest it has been amazing. So we are really, it has been, I have a luxury problem, I say, right? So I need more people joining the team to be able to serve all these different requests and be able to guide them through our solution, to start working on defining the main use cases, the proof of concepts we want to work on. So I have a luxury problem at this point in time.
I'm curious, it seems like nation states would be a huge win here. Are any nation states taking interest in this?
Yeah. Actually, earlier today, I got approached by a colleague in the APAC region saying there's interest of this government to start working on a digital identity solution. They would like to hear about Polygon ID. So yes.
You're paving the road that we all want to walk down. Thank you. Thank you.
It's governments, it's also banks, although they are very regulated. They also would like to know what we are doing. Yeah. As I said, every industry sector you can figure out, transportation, everything. Yeah.
I just have one final question, and then we do a speed round at the end that I think Jay will finish us off. But just curious, and this can be specific to Polygon ID or what you're doing with the ZK EVM side of things. But if we just look out into the future, let's say maybe 3-5 years, where are we at in terms of maybe Polygon, in terms of Polygon ID, Polygon, EVM and Hermez? Where does this whole ecosystem look like? Is it a massive change by that time, or are we still thinking this is like going to be decades away kind of thing? Like, what are your thoughts there, and what maybe predictions on that sort of time frame?
Do you mean the impact, or do you mean the situation of Polygon Maiden?
Either or.
Okay, so well, in 5 years, I personally see Polygon leading the infrastructure layer in Web3. We have a very comprehensive strategy of touching all the potential keys and being super aggressive in terms of not only serving customers and approaching them, but also creating and shipping products. I feel very privileged and happy to be part of this project. In terms of infrastructure, I feel like in 5 years, blockchains will be scaled absolutely. I mean, there will be other players, not only Polygon, of course, but we think we will have a very strong position. But the idea and the objective was to scale Ethereum. So in 5 years, I guess in 3, we will be also doing that, but in 5 for sure. And the impact of the blockchains will be amazing, because what we need is secure transactions, but also low cost, and applications will be embracing that. I think the kind of interactions we have at Polygon with enterprises and many also, I mean, Sylvia was talking about ID, but in let's say in scaling, we have a lot of transactions similar to that, interactions with customers. So I'm super positive and very excited. I mean, we have a lot of work to do in the next years. This is a long objectives in terms of time. We need to be building this and improving a lot. In terms of scalability, for example, ZK EVM, we are just trying to build the first version by the end of the year. But as you said, how many transactions we will support? We need to do thousands per second, and probably we need to do hundreds of thousands per second. So this is going to be a long project. And in terms of ID, we are just in the starting line, but you see the roadmap is very broad. And as we get more information of applications and the market, we will need to guide decisions, and we need probably to open some other fronts. But I think in 3 years, ID will be out there competing with Apple ID for sure.
And I just will add not on how I see it from the evolution of the technology perspective, but closing a bit with how I started. I see that this is going to be a revolution. We are already entering into it. I see that the first movement of the wheel takes a bit more effort, right? But we are starting to get more acceleration, velocity. What we cannot forget in here, and I think that's one of the key areas that are relevant to improve the adoption, is making it much more easy to use to the general public, and resolving certain key aspects that keep us quite busy on a daily basis, which is recovery of keys, right? So usability, user experience, basic aspects as recovery of keys. When all this is improved and resolved, that's gonna be a game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big step to, or the first step to usability is also just education and understanding. So thank you to both of you for taking the time and joining us today and sharing all the incredible work you're doing, and really offering this learning to so many people who are, trying to stay on top of Web3 as it moves at this incredible pace. Just hearing you say where you were a year ago to where you are now, it's exciting to see the progress. So yeah, fantastic. Okay, I've just got a few sort of fun speed round questions before we let you go. And I'll ask the question, then you can both answer it. I've got 4 questions. First question, what's one token you'll never sell? Can be fungible or non-fungible.
Can I start?
Yes, sure.
I wouldn't sell Matic.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
It's of course, we are true believers of our project. So why would I sell Matic, no?
Remember that.
What's alpha? Lots of alpha here. What's one NFT you'll never sell?
NFT. I don't have NFTs. I'm sorry.
Okay, interesting.
Me neither.
I don't have NFTs. I mean, there's NFTs. I see the utility of the NFTs. I see the sense, but I don't collect them.
They're too focused on building a revolution right now.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Because you need to get some time to understand this, and I haven't got it. I'm just building stuff. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Item, right? So we, as I said, I have some gray hair. So from a generational perspective, I think we still need to get much in depth on these NFTs and the value of them. Our perception of the value. So similar to David, I don't own any NFT. We'll see. Maybe that changes soon.
I think we could have another podcast of that discussion right there, because there's lots to unfold there. Okay, other than Polygon, what's another Web3 project that you're excited about and that you're following?
Web3 project. I mean, I personally love Ethereum. I think there's a lot of good projects out there. I have big respect for the guys of Avalanche, the guys of Starkware, Scroll, ZK, the guys they're competing with us also in the ZK rollup space, but also with Optimism and Arbitrum. All the layer 2 space, I think it's crazy good. And I have big respect for them, especially because we're trying to do the same, which is scale Ethereum.
Yeah. In my side, I don't name any particular one, but I'm very interested on the evolution of the DeFi, right? The industry, since I'm coming a bit from that corner. So I'm very interested to see how this is gaining some space and taking some market share, so to say, to the most traditional banking sector. And it's very interesting to see the evolution. And how the certain challenges that we had in the traditional banking system are being resolved here, or taken from a different perspective. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, final question, and this fits well with Sylvia, your revolution. When you're part of a revolution, you need to get the masses on board. So my question is, if you had a billboard, which was going to be seen by 1 billion people, what would you write on that billboard?
Don't sell your Matic.
That could be.
I will write decentralize everything.
Be owner of your identity and
Nice.
your everything. No? Be owner of you. Everything you own.
Fantastic. Wonderful. This has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your knowledge with us. And thank you for building. Don't worry about NFTs. Keep building.
Thank you so much for having us here.
If someone wanted to get involved or wants to just keep up, is there anywhere that we should be following you, or anywhere that we can keep tabs? I don't know if you guys want to give a quick shill, but if there's any way that we can send our listeners in the right direction, please let us know where they should go.
Well, if you have questions around us, the Polygon ID, I can share later on an email address where you can send that to us, right? And then we'll be happy to take that up in the team, right? So if you like, it's ID at polygon.technology. Very easy.
And if anybody wants to help Sylvia with her influx of questions around Polygon ID, send her an email and maybe you'll get a job. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we'll put those links, and we'll put some other links in the show notes, your Twitter and your website and other places where people can find out more about you. And I think, possibly, I was going to say a year from now, we should do a part 2, but in a year from now, the whole world might be different. So hopefully we'll have decentralized more by then. So at some point we'll have you back on the show, I'm sure.
Sure. We keep in contact. Thank you so much for having us. It was great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy. We hope this helps you along your Web3 journey. And if it does, please share this episode and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. By the way, if you've yet to join the Discord community, you are missing out. This is where all the magic happens. This is where we learn, where we ask questions, where we network. You want to be in there. The link to join is in the description below. And finally, a quick disclaimer. Nothing in this podcast was financial advice. Crypto and Web3 can be risky. You can literally lose it all. In fact, if you invest on account of what we say, you probably will lose it all. So don't do that. In all honesty, the point of this podcast is to remove the noise of markets and price and focus on utility and implementation anyway. So you should not take any of this as financial advice. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.